Welcome to the Grow Your Practice podcast. Hi, I'm your host, Chad Madden, owner of Madden Physical Therapy and Breakthrough. Join me each week as we dive into the best practices, systems, principles, tips, and tricks to help you grow your private practice. Hey everybody, Chad Madden here with the Grow Your Practice podcast, and today we have a very special guest. Justin Pezick is a private practice owner in Burlington, Massachusetts of
Orthopaedics Plus Physical Therapy. Thanks for having me, Chad. I appreciate you guys reaching out, giving me this opportunity.
Awesome. So let's start with, how did you become a physical therapist?
Yeah, we get this question a lot, because we host a lot of students, and unlike most people that became PTs, I did not have that sort of injury and then go to PT and experience it. I was one of those weird outlier kids that picked up an anatomy book and never looked back. And that, with my fascination for how things work and problem solving, combined with just wanting to help people, naturally healthcare was the solution. And I don't know, didn't feel like medicine and surgery and physician stuff really aligned with a lot of what I like. Like, my personal life is full of the gym and working out, so physical therapy was really a match from day one for me.
Nice. I'm going to double click on the weird anatomy thing. Weird anatomy kid. Does that mean like you were dissecting like a cat or something like that behind the shed growing up?
It was probably even before you got to the point where you're dissecting frogs and cats in high school. Like, probably in 7th grade, my parents got me like a picture anatomy book of what happens when you do a bicep curl versus a squat, and I just went deep in looking at research and trying to look at different articles online. What is this muscle? What does it do? And the doors just kept opening left and right and just kept going through them.
Nice. So you were a scientist growing up.
That's right. Yeah.
Love it. So you decided to become a PT. Did you grow up in Massachusetts as well?
I actually grew up in Delaware and came up to the Northeast for school. Knew I didn't want to be at University of Delaware, ironically, because it was like number 4 in the nation for PT school at the time, but I couldn't be with everyone I grew up with any longer.
That's great.
I just needed to get out.
So where'd you go?
Boston University. Did a 6-year double major, athletic training and physical therapy. Got my strength conditioning certification in the middle of all that. So I've been doing a bunch of stuff, really acute things for athletics, strength conditioning stuff for private clients and some teams, and then PT stuff here for my career.
Nice. And now, how did you go from graduating Boston U to being a licensed therapist to being a practice owner?
Yeah, so I've been like a super goal-oriented person for as long as I can remember. Goal-setting frameworks, writing goals down, all of it, done it my whole life. So coming out of my undergrad in 2011, I had a 10-year plan already documented on paper of what exactly I was going to do. And it was go to grad school, complete a fellowship, work for an organization for 3 years, buy the practice or open my own practice, become profitable by 3 in that practice.
Wow. Do you still have that written down somewhere?
I'd have to go find it. I think I wrote it on like an actual notebook. Back in the day when I was in college, we still did that. And then probably in I was like 3 years ahead of that 10-year goal. So I'm doing pretty good.
So you've been a practice owner for 7 years. Did you end up buying a practice? Did you and Mike started from scratch?
Yeah. So when I took my first job, made the mistake of going for an organization that paid me more. The alignment wasn't there. And, I was out within a year. Ended up coming to this job, found out this organization that I own now used to run the fellowship that I completed. So when I was looking for a new job, it just so coincidentally happened this organization was looking for a PT. We synced up. And then in that interview, given that I had worked with the then owner in the fellowship for 8 months at that point, we both knew each other really well. The interview was like 3 questions. What do you want to be paid? What do you want in your benefits package? Is there anything else I should know? And I said, I want to be somewhere around what I'm making. Don't mind taking a pay cut as long as it's not too big. The one thing you need to know is that I want to own my own practice by 2020. So if that can't be done here, then I'm going to leave at that point. Just want to be transparent with you if you're cool with that, or if you're not going to help me get there, then, I won't waste my time here, and I don't want to waste yours. And the owner then was like, actually, that fits really well. Like, I'm looking to retire in that time frame, or at least get out of management. So we bought it, and then the old owner still works for us as a staff PT now, and it's been great.
Great story. Cool. So going from goal-oriented clinician, you had mentioned, you got your CSCS, completed a fellowship, quite a few other things, obviously invested a lot in the level of clinical care and quality care that you're delivering. What biggest jump or the biggest surprise going from clinician to
practice owner?
Yeah, I think about that a lot. And when we bring on new people to the leadership team, it's pretty involved in that onboarding process, trying to avoid the mistakes that I made. I think the theme that rang most true to me was you got to figure out how to do stuff through other people. As a treating clinician or as a strength conditioning specialist or athletic trainer, like the effort that you put in and the outcome are directly attached, right? You do X, Y happens. As a business owner, that doesn't necessarily happen, and it actually infrequently happens. If I do X, 8 other things need to happen before the outcome. So really stepping up my coaching skills, my leadership knowledge, my emotional intelligence, really trying to pay attention with how I land with people, and just being really intentional about a lot of those things was the most challenging for me. Came in super hot and wanted to just control everything and direct everyone everywhere, and it worked for about 3 weeks and about it. I mean, I can remember other piece. I bought the business with a business partner who was also an employee at the time. The previous owner was looking to sell, and I can remember we probably wrote up 100 pages worth of working procedures or standard operating procedures for our admin staff. This is how you arrive at a patient. This is how you answer the phone, blah, 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 blah. Had a meeting about it. And then we checked in on it a quarter later, and there's not one of them that was being followed. Not one. And that was the last time we did that.
Yeah, I guilty as charged. I done the same exact thing. It's pretty brutal.
Yeah.
Okay. Really appreciated that answer. Resonates a lot with exactly every other owner that I've ever talked with, and also my own story as well. So yeah, great insight there, and appreciate the thoughtfulness in your answer. I want to back up for 1 second. Can you give the listeners like an idea of how big your practice is, how many clinicians you have, how many locations, square footage, visits a week, whatever you're willing to share there, just so we get an idea of the amount of managing that you're having to do right now?
Yeah, happy to share as much as you want, and I'll probably dive a little bit deeper than maybe some others. But we have 2 locations. Currently today, we have 32 employees, 18 of which are therapists. So we do, on average, 2,700 visits per month as an organization, like 12 to 1,500 a month per location, depending on which one. So back in we were probably doing 1.2 million in revenue, and last year we finished at like 2.8. So growing pretty dramatically on the revenue side of things. I think we started with 20 staff members in 2018, so increased that by 33. And some of that context has to do with some of the stuff that we'll get into later this chat here. In 2019, we implemented sort of the team leader structure. Before, super flat, clinic director, everyone else. Now we started doing clinic director, team leaders for every role, PTA, admin, and PTs, and that sort of unlocked what we were able to accomplish in that time span for revenue growth, and kind of links back to what I'm talking to, getting things done through other people.
Just to summarize that, you had a horizontal, not deep structure before, where it was a director and then all the clinicians were just parallel.
Correct.
And you went to a team leader, which is where you have typically a PT overseeing tech or an aide, PTA, and potentially other PTs and admin as well. Is that right?
Yes. Similar. We don't have PTA. We have rehab techs or PT aides. So the way it works now, clinic director, PT team leader oversees and runs one-on-ones for all the PTs. The assistant PT team leader oversees all of our rehab techs and runs one-on-ones with those. Then we have skip level one-on-ones and all of that organizational stuff for checks and balances.
Cool.
But yeah, same with admin, and that shifted the org structure from this really flat horizontal thing to a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more vertical, a little more ladder-like, if you will. And that, again, allowed us a lot more opportunity to source people's different geniuses and different strengths, things that weren't my strengths. Put those other people in place, really work together as a team, and it's been fantastic.
You mentioned unlocking growth. And I mean, typically, like what I've seen in similar changes is more ownership mentality coming in, maybe less, I call it I told you so management, but top-down management. It sounds like within the team team system or like pods, it's easier to hold some accountability within that team structure as well. What were the biggest things that you saw in terms of the gains that you had that really unlocked that growth for you?
Yeah, I think the big one was what you just mentioned, way less top-down communication. And me being me and my personality, like super scientist, like I like logic, I like reason, I like data. That doesn't land so well with the emotional side of supporting your staff and team members. So right out of the gate, I was like, oh, this is going to be rough. People are not going to like some of the things that kind of are just quirks of mine. So having someone in that interim role to balance us out and cultivate feedback and really land like we're listening. Granted, I'm a very good listener. I just come off like I'm not listening because I have like really quick judgments and like as soon as you say something, my mind's working through a solution and it leads people to think that my mind's already made up. Like, I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with my team over the years in skip levels that they tell me face to face, like, I don't even know why I tell you things because you already have decided before I've even opened my mouth. And those conversations are brutal to hear, but super necessary to make sure we're moving along with the right culture and really growing in the way that we want, not in the way that I think we need and solely me.
Yeah. How do you and your partner, Mike, is it just the two of you in terms of how do you split the responsibilities within the organization?
Yeah, it's a really good question. We actually own two separate businesses, PT and personal training. They both operate out of the same square footage, separated by like a glass wall. So there's a lot of transparency in the view. Side tangent, the value of that is when we're rehabbing someone that has a total knee, and then someone's over there deadlifting 200 pounds. If my patient tells me, wow, look at them, I'd never be able to do that, then I can turn around and say, that was my patient 8 months ago doing exactly what you're doing. So because we own the two businesses, it works out quite well where some of my strengths in numbers and data, I lend to the T business and do accounting and data analytics there. Mike's strengths in marketing, he does that for otherwise. Mike runs 95% of the personal training in both locations. I run 95% of the physical therapy in both locations.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. So I want to dive into leadership a little bit. You had mentioned the, reorganization over the last 6 or 7 years. I assume that, in the prep here, what you had sent me about leadership principles and organizational foundations, that you're also providing training and support to your directors and team leaders. Can you talk a little bit about what you've rolled out there with Patrick Lencioni and the Table Group and really what has been the biggest advantage you're willing to share?
Yeah. So the foundation of the Table Group and their model is what they call organizational health.
I was talking with an owner about marketing and specifically marketing a de novo clinic, and I wrote out 36 processes that we have in our marketing system. I go through, and this is simply a checklist, but I go through all 5 new patient pathways, reactivations, word of mouth referral, physician or professional licensed referral, partner referrals, and then cold traffic marketing. And I laid out all of our processes and what that looks like. If you'd like a copy of that, simply click on the link. You can download a copy so you know what a marketing system looks like that addresses all 5 new patient pathways. It's going to give you confidence whether you're opening a new clinic or you have an established clinic and you're just looking to fill the schedules of your existing therapist, or you're just looking for consistency in your new patient flow. This is how we think about, this is how we've evolved over 20 plus years working with now over 2,000 private practice owners from all over the world, not only all 50 states in the US, but 11 countries internationally, physios in 11 countries internationally as well. So if you like that sheet, it's absolutely free. You can click on the link, download it, and get a checklist of the marketing processes that we have in our marketing system.
They dive deep into it in the book called The Advantage by Patrick Lencioni, and it's basically made up of 4 domains. The construct of it is you got to run a smart business and you got to run a healthy business. There's parallels to that analogy in pretty much every major business person you work with. It's just managing the business data KPI side of things with the human relationship desires side of things. In the Table Group's model, organizational health, smart are all your business metrics, healthy is all build your culture and how do you cultivate feedback, psychologically safe spaces, et cetera, et cetera. So we ended up doing a whole bunch of prep work of like really diving into the 4 domains. The organizational health domains are create a cohesive leadership team, create clarity, reinforce the clarity, and then over communicate the clarity. And it starts with everyone being on the same page of where are we on these 4 domains. So everyone did like a little bit of reflection work with some discussion questions. And then we presented an entire all hands meeting to the company of like, here's our foundational strategy moving forward. Here's why we want you to know what it is. Here's why it's important. Here's why we chose this versus any other sort of foundational strategy. So that's how we rolled it out in the beginning. And there we started layering on tools on top of that, because frankly the organizational health foundation is that it's a lot of really broad spectrum advice, I guess you could say, but it doesn't really point you down a specific path. Layer on some of the other tools and now you start to get to really tangible things like KPIs and defining objectives and priorities for the year, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, we just full transparency. I never worked directly with the table group, but we did have 2 coaches, I think, for 6 or 7 years that we worked with who were out of Boston, Wayne Ferrari and Rich Manders. And I believe they had worked with Patrick Lencioni and brought a lot of the principles in.
Yep.
We went through the 5 dysfunctions of a team. Oh, I just blanked on the one you mentioned.
Organizational health.
Yeah, went through that, rolled out a lot of those tools, primarily in like looking at core values. We do the 5 behaviors assessment, I think, is part of that as well. And yeah, so once you did that and you started investing in your leadership team, what's been the response from them so far?
Yeah, I mean, just looking at where they came from 2019 to where they are today is crazy. I think the biggest thing that I would say over the last 5 years, what the most impactful lesson is how you connect your message, what you're saying, what you're delegating, what you're doing to different levels. What I mean by that is you have your results-based level, do this to get this outcome. You have your behavior-based level, change this, and that behavior drives this outcome. Then you have your values level. If you can talk to somebody in language that they value or their own values, then they're more apt to change their behavior, which betters their results. And then lastly, their beliefs, right? If you can get the conversation into the beliefs section, then that's where you really drive a lot of introspection and a lot of insights. So the question is, if someone's low on charges or visits in their PIs, how do I take that conversation and put it into a beliefs conversation? It's not the easiest thing to do, but when you can get there, you're probably going to see a lot more movement and a lot less feeling of, why is Todd on my butt about doing this every other week or every month or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So that's probably the biggest tool that spans from the really base foundation of the pyramid all the way up to like, here's how you use it in your day-to-day in a real conversation.
From a leadership perspective, and I know you gave a hypothetical or general example there. Can you think of it where you had a team member who was struggling and you used that approach and really helped them turn around not only their behavior, but you addressed their belief system and then also got the end result, the turnaround that you were looking for?
Yeah, it's actually been a couple more recent ones. So we implemented stay interviews maybe a year ago. If you don't know what stay interviews are, they're just a different version of an exit interview. Instead of interviewing people after they've already told you they're leaving, we're starting to interview people at every year, 6 months offset from their performance reviews of why do you stay here, and with a whole bunch of other questions. But our one staff member, his cancellation rate has been going up and down, up and down. A couple months it's good, 3, 4, 5%. Other months it's 8, 9, 12%. And we just can't maintain the consistency. We know he can do it because he's proven that he can do it, but why is it fluctuating? In the beginning, they were talks about assertiveness and talking with confidence and using certain language that helps you express things in terms of your needs for the relationship and the plan of care. And then those seemed to work. I'm like, great, this is awesome. And then when they went back, we were expecting that he slid back into his old language, and it turns out he didn't. But what did happen was some stuff outside of work, personal things that sort of got into his head with insecurities and personal beliefs and stuff like that. So once we unpacked that in the one-on-one, really helping him reframe his beliefs about himself and the care that he can provide and the quality of it, started to drive that number down and stay down more consistently. And it's just one of those things that if you never choose to look there in your staff, sort of external reasons why a KPI might be down or why something might be down, then you're missing out on a lot of potential growth there.
Great point. I know one of the things you had talked about before, Justin, before we hit record, was if we go back a year or two, you have a lot of good systems in place and you really wanted to align those systems. That was the main goal. I know you went through the Profitability Under Pressure program that we had here at Breakthrough. Can you talk a little bit about what exactly you meant by that, how you felt, maybe some things were not aligned or they were siloed off, a lot of good ideas? Because I think that's a pretty common syndrome that we suffer as owners is, we want to do something over here in personnel and incentivizing our team. We want to do, roll out a new EMR. We also want to do something over, a marketing initiative, and we have all these different things that we want to roll out. How did you find, the right focus and right alignment to move the organization forward?
Yeah, still in the works, but in the meantime, what we have done is, like as with anything, right, you're introduced to a new topic or a new skill set or a new analogy, and you use it as you read it, as you heard it, as you saw it. And then as you continue to use it, you iterate on it and you kind of make it your own. What we did for years as we introduced and rolled out new pieces of the table groups models, 5 dysfunctions of the team, organizational health, OKRs, meeting rhythms, et cetera, they were very out of the box, kind of no personal touch, if you will. It made things feel disjointed. So we've started to take the models and put our spin on them. How do they work for us? Like when we first started doing OKRs, objectives and key results, we were doing it on a quarterly cycle. That was just way too fast for how our company runs and sort of the action items and how it's all set up and checking in. So we modified that to a 6-month goal cycle, and that seems to be working out quite nicely. So it was probably the leveraging of the goal setting system, OKRs, that helps us be clear that things are misaligned, and it helps us identify this is the one big priority that we want to focus on for this goal cycle, and it's okay if some of these other things stay misaligned. Otherwise, we sit in like a paralysis by analysis state of like, there are so many things that we want to change and improve on and tweak that we're just kind of going all over the place, not really making a ton of progress in any one specific area. So the shift over the years from 2018 to 20-ish, we poured super heavy into the health of the organization. Culture, feedback, psychologically safe spaces, tools for all of that to happen, really getting people's insights and making them feel heard. And then we started shifting way more towards the performance side of things and sort of ownership of numbers and the business before we opened it or owned it was run very much, you show up, see what patients come in that day, and that's it. Like there's no real ownership of you to do anything. The value of that was it was small enough that you can kind of get away with it. Slackers are kind of stick out like a sore thumb and not going to last super long. The downside of it is if you're trying to grow, that's just not a recipe for growth. Like you got to have people taking ownership of their own stuff. So that shift happened, and now the final shift is sort of financial optimization. We run pretty lean on the books. We run fairly heavy on our staff cost ratio. So how do we bridge that gap given declining reimbursements and all of that? So that's really where the PUP course came into play, of highlighting different options that are both short-term, small effort, put this into play today, and really long-term, large effort, long-term success kind of things. So
Was there a notable win, a quick win that you had going through the Profitability Under Pressure course, in addition to the alignment, maybe one of the tactics or something that you focused on and implemented?
Yeah, I think the infrastructure around word of mouth referrals, the recheck days, doing like a past patient relationship initiative, which is basically one-to-one communications with people as you guys talk about there. So those 3 are all in play, and we'll see how they work. They literally launched. They're going to launch tomorrow, actually.
Oh,
Yeah. So that's really great. The first recheck days are in April. Another big win is we brought on Bob's team and RCS. Given the level of freakishly weird data that I like, Bob was a perfect fit for that. I asked him like 1,000 questions around all of these different metrics that he talks about in the course, and he was like, yeah, I can't give you that just like as a generic answer. We got to dive deep into your practice metrics and stuff. So we met separately, and that's kind of opening a lot of doors of there's so much more room for financial optimization without really changing a ton of structure or putting out new processes processes. So those are all probably the biggest wins out of the course.
And just for a reference for everybody, that's Bob is Robert Kowalik with Revenue Cycle Solutions. He does go by Bob. And Bob is a physical therapist, former private practice owner. By the time you get this, he'll be on the virtual summit. He was one of the experts in the Profitability Under Pressure class as well that contributed. And I believe he did specifically how to drop a low payer. But Bob really has done a deep dive in data analytics around revenue cycle. That's what you were referring to.
Yeah.
Cool. So what right now within the practice, other than the rollout that you have launching tomorrow, what's the next one big thing that you're working on?
Yeah, so we are switching EMRs. That's tactically something that obviously that's happening on Monday. So we're kind of in the end of that transition per se. If that didn't exist, then what we're trying to really do is beef up our sort of clinical expertise, if you will, mentorship, what specific training looks like, what our in-service schedule looks like. For years, I think we did the typical, if you have a student, do an in-service, they pick something like how PT in hospitals is better with an interpreter. And it was just, after a while, we were like, we're spending a lot of time and money to get all of our staff here in this meeting talking about something that we're literally never going to use ever. So we got to rethink this. And meanwhile, we have people doing questionable treatment decisions based on the presentation of a patient. And it's like, okay, I think we're missing the boat on where we're going. We can't keep saying we are clinically excellent when internally we can look around and be like, there's a couple of questionable decisions happening here. So that's a big one for us. I think those are the two. And then later this year, Q3, Q4, the hope is that the team leaders are running finances for their teams, raises, profitability, expenses, et cetera, to give the team leader a bit more ownership and comprehensive view of sort of the business side of things.
Nice. So they're looking at their team as a profit center.
Exactly.
Very cool. Justin, this has been amazing. Final two questions for you. If somebody wants to reach out and learn more about you, what's the best way for them to do that? You can direct them to your practice website or whatever works best.
The easiest way is probably just shoot me an email, justin@orthopaedicsplus.com. That is ORTHOPAEDICS plus.com. It's the Latin spelling. My cell phone's 302-562-1569.
Wow, you're brave.
You can text me, but I'm never going to answer, so definitely email me. I literally tell my family, in an emergency, email me, because I will have before your text message. So it's just a thing. Like, I hate texting, can't stand it. So
Got it. Final question. What's the most influential book you've ever read?
Personally or business? For the business?
Either.
For the business, it's a tie between the 5 dysfunctions of a team and the 5 omissions, the motive by Patrick Lencioni, which goes into like what most leaders start to omit. Personally, it's a book called You're Not Listening by Kate Murphy. Fantastic resource around genuine curiosity and just listening. Like, as a logical person, I know all of the information in that book. I've read 100 books on listening and being a better listener and active listening. This is the one that clicked for me. I don't know what it was about it, but the theme that stuck out from that book is sort of a shift response versus a support response. And I tend to shift a lot, meaning if someone tells me their parents are sick and it's not looking good, my default response is, I remember when my parents are sick. And as a way to try to empathize and just understanding it's not landing like that. It's landing like I'm kind of dismissing or downgrading their feelings or comparing my feelings to theirs or equating them. So that was a big one for me that allowed me to really have better conversations in my one-on-ones and unlock a little bit more growth with my team.
Nice. Great rep there. Guilty as well. Very cool. Well, thanks again for doing this. Appreciate everyone.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on here. I hope this was helpful to people. Certainly reach out with questions. I sent Chad a bunch of tools that you guys they'll be linked somewhere, but feel free to reach out if you have questions on those tools or how to implement them or how to utilize them or whatnot.
Yeah, we'll put the 2 tools and your blog posts within the show notes here as well.
Cool. Yeah, I added 3 more tools earlier today. So.
Oh, nice. I don't think I saw that, but great, man. I was talking with an owner about marketing and specifically marketing de novo clinic. And I wrote out 36 processes that we have in our marketing system. I go through, and this is simply a checklist, but I go through all 5 new patient pathways, reactivations, word of mouth referral, physician or professional licensed referral, partner referrals, and then cold traffic marketing. And I laid out all of our processes and what that looks like. If you'd like a copy of that, simply click on the link. You can download a copy so you know what a marketing system looks like that addresses all 5 new patient pathways. It's going to give you confidence whether you're opening a new clinic or you have an established clinic and you're just looking to fill the schedules of your existing therapist, or you're just looking for consistency in your new patient flow. This is how we think about, this is how we've evolved over 20 plus years, working with now over 2,000 private practice owners from all over the world, not only all 50 states in the US, but 11 countries internationally, physios in 11 countries internationally as well. So if you like that sheet, it's absolutely free. You can click on the link, download it, and get a checklist of the marketing processes that we have in our marketing system.